Hi, I'm Jamie, and this is JJ, and we are Unscripted with JJ and Jamie. On the first few episodes, JJ, we covered a lot of who we are and where we came from. A lot of the things that we've done, from like our childhood memories to you playing basketball to real estate, basketball camp, into travel. And, I think we shared a lot of things about ourselves, and we opened up. Like this is a new adventure for us here in the podcast world. And so I'm really like, the feedback that we're getting is pretty good. And I think on this one, let's dive in a little bit deeper on how do all those things intertwine in entrepreneurship, in business. How does one thing lead to the next, which leads to the next, which teaches you what you need to know about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and if you're looking back at our lives together, we have kind of been entrepreneurs, for a very long time, with the things we had done, from basketball camp to starting a company that, sold, clothing, to even basketball. Yeah. I was taken outside of the country, over to Europe, and I was by myself. So I even look at that as, entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah, I'd never really thought of it like that until, we started talking about it. And it's like, you were your own company. You had an agent, and your agent represented you, but you individually had to sign those contracts. So, we didn't sign them, or you didn't sign them as a corporation, which, they may do that now, but we didn't really think of it like that. We was just like, but it really was entrepreneurship. You had to negotiate your salary. You had to negotiate your living, travel expenses. Like I know that when Jada was little, she thought that the only class in flights was first class. And, we joked about that a lot, that was, when she realized that it's okay to fly and coach, that was, but that was something we always negotiated. And the teams always flew us first class everywhere we went. And, these are the negotiating skills that we didn't really think, that's entrepreneurship, but it was. We had a little business.
And the power of brand.
Right.
Power of brand. If you think about it, to get people to come to the basketball camp, we had to be very well branded.
Right.
And that goes back to your personal brand, not just your business brand, right. To contact the team over in Europe, but first by going through a scout, yep, or an agent over there.
You had to be seen.
You had to be seen. You had to have a brand. Brand is so powerful, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Right. And I think that even back then, I wish that we had taken the advice of your agent,
Al Walden.
He told us, he's like, you guys need to make shirts. You need to sell shirts. And I was like, but what would people think? People would think we needed money. And like, what's the perception of it? And it's like, and we never did it because it felt uncomfortable. Because nobody else was doing it. And he knew what we didn't know. And that is branding, brand. Your
absolutely,
brand.
Absolutely. And when you're young, you don't understand those things. Yeah. But the word you just used, uncomfortable. That's a word that I think anybody that's going to be an entrepreneur needs to become comfortable with, is being uncomfortable.
You have got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely, because that makes you do things.
Right.
That makes you react a certain way.
Yeah.
When you can get used to being uncomfortable, then you don't become as afraid to try new things, to try new avenues or new adventures and things like that.
Well, think of it. Like, what were we afraid of? We were afraid of what would people think if we made a shirt with your name on it, with your image on it. What would people in Italy think about us? Why did we care? Why was that so important to us? But we've always worried about, what is the image? We have always worried, or we have always been conscious. I wouldn't say worried, but we've always been conscious of what the image is, or how will this be perceived? But why did we care what people that we didn't even know, or we maybe knew a little bit, would think about us. This is a business adventure, so why would we care? But I think
instead of seizing the opportunity,
right? Like we were so. I'll say I was so small town. I was just, this wasn't what people did. Because like that would be seen as gloating. Like if you have a T-shirt made with your image on it, like that's conceited. That's but these are other people's perceptions. Look at it. Michael Jordan's done it. I mean, all these influencers, like that's how they're making a ton of money, and it's genius. It's genius. But
why would we seize the opportunity of
right.
10, 15, 20,000 fans?
Right.
You're
wearing your brand.
Coming in to be a part of the team. And in a lot of those instances, when I joined the team, they already had losing records.
Right.
So if you can come in and save the day,
and you're winning, oh man,
you become and how much more they really adore you.
Right.
Adore you, and
people
want to wear your. And in Europe, it's huge.
Right.
It is huge. They wear the jerseys and the shirts of the people that they support.
Well, the people were wearing your jerseys.
Oh, absolutely.
We just weren't getting a cut of it. Like, that's the thing. Like, people were wearing your jerseys already.
Absolutely.
But we wasn't getting a cut. I mean, you may have got a little, like a royalty of some sort, but it wasn't making any changes. But I think, and in a previous episode, I said, we are not shoulda, coulda, woulda, but we talked about the one real estate investment that we did pass up. I would say if there was, you know what, I wouldn't change anything because I'm very happy and pleased with where we are now. But I would say that would be one set of advice that I wished we had taken from your agent, Al.
Absolutely. And if you look at some of the actors or actresses or professional sports players, entrepreneurs, period, that have taken advantage of those opportunities, there's two that come to mind that have done an absolutely incredible job of building a brand, and that is the Kardashians and Tyler Perry.
Yes.
I mean, these are people that Tyler Perry, I remember the hustle that he had. He created these kind of home-style, home-based theatrical plays.
And people bootlegged them.
And they bootlegged them.
Yeah. Well, we may have to explain what a bootleg is to our friends because our audience may not know what a bootleg
That's right. But anyway,
plays were.
They were selling them outside. People were selling them outside the disc.
Yeah.
Where they would go home and they would watch these as they played out. I mean, it was incredible.
I have to be honest. The first Tyler Perry shows or plays that we saw were definitely not his. They were the ones that, someone had went in and taken a video camera. But after that, we had seen, and he did a really good job at saying, hey, if you're watching these, this is hurting. Like we won't have the money to put these plays on. And he's done some remarkable things. He's done remarkable things in the industry, in the communities. And so I think that that's important. But you're right. He branded not only himself, but everybody that he touches, he brands. Medea, it's went on to be a huge franchise. You brought up the Kardashians. I know for years, you and I, we kind of butted heads about that. We butted heads about the Kardashians because, you and I were not on the same page. And I said, these people, like this Kris Kardashian, she's a genius.
She is.
Absolutely. And I was like, when your kids are getting paid $1 million to make an Insta or a Twitter post, she's like, okay, if people are willing to pay my daughters $1 million, and I don't even know if this is how it went down. This is the way I see it. And she's just, because she's a very smart lady. And if she's sitting there and she's looking at people like paying them $1 million to post about their product, how much money must they be making to use their name? So why not make your own product? Whether it's makeup, Skims, socks, like they've got so many. Kris Jenner just did it's a master class, and and she breaks it all down, and she talks about all the brands that they have, and some are brands you maybe haven't heard of, but that's entrepreneurship. For every, how many ever businesses you have, if one you just need one of them to stick and just fly, out of the stratosphere. And so I look at them, and they really just took what was a crazy family that had a lot of fun. They were entertaining in the fact that they were normal. They were just normal people with normal problems. The little girls wanted to wear makeup. I saw a little clip the other day where it was Kylie, I think, where she got in a fight with her dad about wearing makeup. But that's the thing. They were not afraid to put it out there, because what were people saying? Oh, look at them. They're conceited. Who would put their story out there like that? Oh, they want something. Well, isn't that what the name of the game is? You have to go past that uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Yes. And so I think that so many people, because here's the thing. There's been reality shows after reality shows after reality shows, and some have done well, but none of them have done what the Kardashians have done. There's been some really good ones, but then there's been others. It's like, okay, they did it. It didn't stick. How come it didn't stick? So you've got to give them props for their entrepreneurships, her wisdom, and now their wisdom. So she's passed that down to her daughters. Now her daughters are very savvy business people. If you look at their early episodes, they were like any other family where the girls are fighting with the parents, and the girls are out drinking and getting in trouble and doing this and driving their parents crazy because the parents know there's something bigger and better than this lifestyle. Yes. I mean, it's just normal stuff. Yes. And they took someone's advice and made a t-shirt. Yes. They didn't care about the haters that were saying, who makes a t-shirt and sells it of themselves? Yeah. But like I said about the influencers, you got to give them props. They are branding their t-shirts, their clothing line, their sunglass line, whatever it is, they're branding it, and you got to give props to them.
Understand the power of influence.
Right. Because people want to support the people that they like, just like in basketball. It's no different. I mean, I've seen our friend Doug and Rochelle, their daughter Taylor, she'll be the first to buy a t-shirt of someone that she likes. I heard her last night say an influencer that she likes started an ice cream. I think it was an ice cream parlor. I was half listening. Yes. That's what I do. So for our listeners, I half listened. But I was listening, and I heard her say, I think JoJo had if I'm wrong, just make a comment, let me know and correct me on this. And she goes, oh, we'll have to go try that out. Because when people like people, they want to support them. And how do you support them? You support them by shopping their places, whether that was, a store, a clothing store, or whatever it is.
So let me take it a step further.
Yeah.
Okay. How will you know if you even like somebody if you never put yourself out there?
Right.
If they never put themselves out there. That's right. What I think was the power of the Kardashians. They put themselves out there. They became feeling comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
So they opened up, because when it first started, I was like, that's really not them. That's really not their livelihood. That's not what they do. Really
this is all scripted.
It is scripted.
And I'm like, I don't think it is.
And it took me a while to realize it really isn't as scripted as, there may be small parts in
right. Here's an idea, take this and run.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, they were willing to put themselves out there.
Right.
And I think it has really paid off for them. I think you've got a couple billionaires in the family now.
And what parent wouldn't like to help their children start companies, at that level?
Correct. And Kylie, she's amazing.
Yeah.
And she's what, 24?
I think she was the first billionaire, 20, or she was the youngest billionaire, self-made billionaire or something. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that.
So, I mean, this has got to say something. Okay. There's Chris, Courtney.
Okay, yeah. Show me your
Chloe. Okay, and this is the
Courtney.
power.
Don't forget Courtney. Who just married Travis. How do I know all this?
Exactly. This is the power.
Yeah.
Right here.
These are people I don't know.
This is not. It's not like I watch their show all the time.
Yeah, I've not watched an episode in
but
years.
I know who they are.
Right.
And I know what they bring.
Yeah.
And I know the power of that family.
But you know what? Think of that risk, like you said, that they took because here's two people that pretty much we agree on a lot of things. We didn't agree on the Kardashians at the beginning.
Not at all.
And I've heard a lot of people say negative things, and then you're like, oh, don't. I remember, like, gosh, probably 6-7 years ago, somebody in the company said something about the Kardashians. You go, oh, whoa, like, don't say anything about the Kardashians in front of Jamie.
Yeah.
Like, she's territorial.
Yeah.
But you think of like how women do it now too. But like, when you played basketball, like the men were diehards. It's like you have a team. You fight for that team. Now women are kind of getting in that too. It's like, my team's the Steelers, and it's like, and that's my team. And, and it's like, okay, well, like the players, like they don't know who you are, so it's like, it's, I would equate it to that. Like, I feel like that's the team I'm rooting for. That's the team I want to win. I want the Kardashians to win. Yeah. And, and it's like, and when somebody says they don't want him to win, I'm like, but why? It's the same with a basketball, a football, a soccer team. Why would you not want another team to win? And, well, I don't, but that's our society. So the Kardashians and other companies that said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to sell my brand and I'm going to put myself out there. And it's scary. And we did not do that when your agent suggested that, because it just seemed, where I come from, the people that I knew, the way I talked about people. I talked about people like that.
Give you another way to look at what Mr. Alton R. Walden Jr. was doing at that time. And I think we look at business the same exact way, with Magical Vacation Planner, with the partners. And when I say the partners, I'm talking about our advisors. I'm talking about the suppliers. I believe winners help winners.
They do.
Winners want to see people win. And everything I know that we do here at Magical Vacation Planner, we are trying to help people succeed and to win, whatever they're seeking. Right.
And that's internal and external. And I think that that's important, to surround yourself with people. And when I say internal, we have our office staff, but we also, what I would say external would be our agents. So our job internally is to provide every tool that our agents need to be successful.
Absolutely.
And think of it like this. If I don't want to see Doug succeed, how does that, like, if I've got a problem with Doug and I'm like, you know what, I can do what he's doing better. I don't want Doug to do it. I'm going to do it better. And if he doesn't, I hope he fails. Like, that is toxic. That's nonsense. But how many times have we seen in basketball, in real estate, and stuff like that, people say, hey, you're on my team, but they want to see you fail. Yes. You better surround yourself with people that want to see each other in your team succeed. Yes. Because my success would be Doug's success. Doug's success would be mine. My success is the agent's. Doug's success is the agent's. Doug's success is yours. Your success is Doug's. And I'm using Doug because Doug's an easy target. I always say that. Doug is an easy target. But, you think of that. And you think of the agents. And if they're butting heads and they're saying, did you see her? Did you see him? They think they're fancy. It's the same thing that it was when you were playing ball. If you're not supporting or you're not wishing well, you will never do well. And so I think that's so important to have that. Winners make winners. Yes. Winners surround themselves with other winners.
And that's, a lot of people would say, well, that's easy for us to say. Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
As entrepreneurs,
okay,
how do we approach the the risk factor, the economy of, economic turns and all those things? How do we, because a lot of people will say,
it's easy to say.
It's easy to have winners when you're winning.
Yeah.
Okay. But what about when you're starting out and you have all the risk and the factors and all that stuff that comes into play?
I think that's a tough question, because like in the beginning, like I said, and even now, like I would say we had just as many haters in the beginning as we do now. In success, like that is the only thing that's guaranteed, is there will be people that's not cheering for you. like, period. That's it. But I think that you have to find the positive. If you look, like, it will show up. The negative will rear its ugly head. The positive will rise. Like, what is it they say? The cream will always rise to the top. You have to be prepared to be uncomfortable. You have to, I forget your question.
You know what? That's a great point.
Yeah. Like, this is the part about taping a podcast. Like, my head got excited.
That's a great point, because we had an advisor actually that reached out to us after an episode.
Yes.
And she said, you know, I've been here for so long and my business is doing exceptional.
Phenomenal.
And she said, you had mentioned how, you know, floating or being
flying under the
radar, you know, was, you know, something that you can focus on or should focus on. But then the next thing that was mentioned was taking a chance.
Yeah. It's scary.
And when you take that chance, you know, become, you know, within the beams of the radar.
You know, people are going to be aiming to knock you down.
Absolutely. But she said, you know, maybe it's time, you know, for me to take a chance.
She did. That was such a fun phone call, because, like, she is literally, and when we mentioned her name to people, like, who's that? I've never heard of her. And she did say that. She said, well, I heard on a podcast from someone that I really admire. And I was laughing. I was like, yeah, she's kind of an idiot sometimes, though. I was joking with her because she was talking about me. But me and you on the thing, but she was like in the message that she was talking about, she was referring to something that I had said, and I said, it is scary, and nobody wants to be attacked. I think that is, nobody enjoys being attacked, and nobody enjoys seeing people, like, it makes no sense to me why anybody would want someone to do bad or to fail.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes people that maybe don't have that experience, or they don't, you know, because everybody will say, oh, I always want everybody to win. Do you?
Yeah.
Like, do you? Like,
you know,
it's a lot of times they don't.
That's why at Magical Vacation Planning, we try to, you know, at least foster positivity, collaborative work, working together, and, you know, build like culture around these things, around those key, you know, principles, you know, that we stand for.
Yeah.
But it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's
well, and I was going to say, not to be mistaken with, I mean, I've got my moments where someone can easily say, oh, you're not reflecting who you say. I have my moments. Like, I'm not, like, I mean, there's times I've screamed at my kids, that I've had an attitude with people that, you know, I'm just having a day, or I'm upset about something. And I was talking to a dear friend the other day on a Zoom call. And I said, one thing that she taught me was being vulnerable, because, like, she would do Zoom calls for a large group, and she'd say, come on, guys, I'm being vulnerable here, because they would start attacking. And she handles herself so much better than I do. And I told her that. I was like, I need to be better, because when people attack me, that defense mechanism comes out, you know. But when do I do that? Like, I do that when I'm scared. I do that when I'm not in control. I do that when I'm uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean that 99% of the times I am not trying to push positivity, that I'm not trying to push kindness, that I'm not trying to push the things that we do believe in. Like I said, now, I don't want people to say, you know, if they hear that I did something, or that I, you know, said a cuss word, well, that's, like, if you know me, you know that I cuss from time to time. But that I never do it I never cuss at people. You know, it's usually like in a joking way, or like just being silly. But I think that that's the other thing, as entrepreneurs, or as people that's putting themselves out there, we know that people are going to call us out when maybe they feel that we could have done better. And I'll be the first one to be like, oh, like, look, I've never claimed to be perfect. I've never, you know, like, that's not been me. That's not been me ever. But I think that people mistake our vision, our mission, our passion as we're saying we're holier than thou, or that we're perfect, when anybody in our inner circle knows that's not the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to do those things and trying to act or be those ways doesn't mean that we are perfect, that we are,
right.
But we should still continue to strive to be those.
Right.
You
Yeah.
those things. So.
I think, I go back to, like, there are moments in parenting that I'm like, oh my gosh, like, if that was like, I mean,
And I do that over.
yeah. And I'm like, because I'm sure that my head spun around a few times and my eyes got big and I'm like, it's like, I had my moments, it's like I lost my temper. But I think as we grow older, we experience more things. It's like, how is it that Anne Kane was always patient? Well, it's because she was older. She was wiser. She knew that this too shall pass, and I think you've got to surround yourself with people that remind you this too shall pass. And I think that if we go back, even internally, like I said, like internally, you'll hear me a lot of times say, how will this affect our agents? If we got a squabble or something in the office, I'll say, is this about us or is it about our agents? Because if it's not about our agents, then we need to figure this out. But like, we are ultimately here for our agents. So our agents can have all the tools that they need to provide to their clients to be the best agent that they can be.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to know your family drama. Like, right. and that's it. It's like nobody, like, that shouldn't,
Right. And we have, as
we've got family drama.
As entrepreneurs and business owners, we have aspirations. We have things we like to do and we want to do.
Right.
But I can say the one thing that we do, and we do this consistently, is whenever we decide doing something for the company or within the company, we always make sure that we understand how it's going to affect advisors out there.
That's ultimately the goal.
70% of the decisions we make internally is to help and promote, their businesses.
Absolutely.
That's why they're here. They're here to build a business.
Right.
So, I can say that is one thing that we do stand behind.
100%. And I think that it's important that we tell people, you know what, our kids aren't perfect. My extended family, like it wasn't perfect. It's better now. But, it's like, it's important to share that, with our team, with our agents, with our vendors. Like, our vendors know that we're not, it's like they know we're work in progress. I think that's what I told somebody the other day. I was like, thanks for the reminder. I'm work in progress, and it's like, and it also tells us and it reminds us that there's always people watching, and I think that's when, because like sometimes we're like, but like, can I not have a moment of frustration? Can I not get angry about something? It's not always rainbows and lollipops. It's like entrepreneurship. And I think that's one thing, it's like, I was going over some of the highlight reels that I put on social media, or that our team has put together and that they put on social media. And I'm like, wow, I want their life. Because it's like you get these little snippets, like, wow, we look so happy. Yes. It's like, wow, like you put good music on it. It's like there was a video that I did with Home Sweet Home on it. Like, it's Motley Crue, and I was like, but that song just brings back memories, like good memories from my childhood. And I'm like, and then I see this video and I just get these warm, great feelings. And then I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure me and Jada was fighting before that video. But I mean, I obviously left that part out, that we're arguing over, why are you an hour late? Why are you, or I've been guilty because, like, with the baby, I get so excited, I forget. And sometimes I just take him out of our hands. I'm like, and I get so excited. And she has to remind me that, like, to slow down, like, don't snatch the baby out of my hand. And I'm like, did I? And she'll look around and everybody's shaking their hand like, yeah, you did. But sometimes I just get caught up in the moment. But, it's like I look at these reels, or I look at people that I know on a personal level, and I see these videos that they make and it looks so perfect. And I know they're struggling with depression, or I know that they're struggling with relationship issues. And I think that that's the thing of social media. Yes, we put out what is the best. And I think that sometimes that gets misconstrued, that that's how we are all the time.
That's interesting because that is exactly what one should do with their business.
Yeah.
It's just like, how everything looks great.
Yeah.
Perfect, on the personal level. You know, when you're putting stuff out there for your business, you want everything to come across.
Oh, yeah.
You know, perfect and great. You want people to join
your image.
It's your
image.
It's your brand. So what are some of the challenges or the surprises that you've had trying to manage, you know, your team or others in this industry? You know, what are some of those big moments?
Okay. I would say, embarrassingly enough, I would say if you asked me 5 years ago if I was a control freak, I would have said no, absolutely not. Not me. I'm not a control freak. But over the years, I've realized I'm definitely a control freak. You know, whether it's shooting videos, whether it's, you know, it's like everything. And when do I, like I said a few minutes ago, when do I get frustrated? I get frustrated when things are out of my control. Like,
but is being a control freak or wanting to have control a bad thing?
Well, I think it depends who you're asking.
Yes.
Because like, I think that some people that understand where my intentions are, they get it, they understand, and they understand that's part of the process. I'm never going to want to be in control of something for a bad reason. Like, I'm not going to be in control of something because like something that's going to benefit me only. It's going to be like, I know if you did this, how it's going to change your life. You know, so if you're doing things that what I consider maybe you shouldn't be doing, I may tell you. And then you can perceive that as being controlling. And then you can become rebellious. I mean, we were all like that.
But a lot of that stuff comes from personal experience.
100%. 100%. And that's why I said, like, I think we've told our kids this. We are never going to give you advice that's going to put you in a bad position. Why? Because we're going to be the ones helping dig them out of the bad position. Like, so we know this. And so, you know, and that's just with our kids. But you think of, even you go a little bit deeper outside of business, and you think of when you're not in control. Like, I wasn't in control when Aunt Liz was diagnosed with cancer. So I had to control our environment. Think of when my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I couldn't control her illness. But I think that's maybe when I realized how controlling I was when my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
The one time you made a $2,500 mistake
100%.
with a client,
yeah,
and you wanted to make sure that you control that situation to never do it again.
100%. How do you, and that's why I say, if you make a mistake, that's okay. But if you keep making the same mistake over and over, like, but if you make a $2,500 mistake like I did, and believe you me, like the zeros just, yeah, the zeros just keep getting added to this, because I've made some pretty big mistakes lately, and I'm like, you know, but I don't do it twice. You know, it's that's one thing. And so a lot of times I've talked to some of the agents and just basically told them all the things I've messed up. Don't want to mess up an airline ticket. You don't want to forget a final cruise payment, you know. And it's funny because they're like, wow, you made those mistakes. And I'm like, I'm the queen of mistakes. Like, you know, I am the poster child for mistake making, but it's how you recover. You know, it's how you fix that. There was one family back in the earlier days that I messed up, and she never forgave me. I tried to fix it and she never forgave me. And it was somebody that I saw often. And still to this day, I feel terrible. I mean, she never booked with me. But what she didn't do is she didn't go and tell everybody in town that I was a horrible travel agent. But you know what? The mistake and it was my mistake. Like, it was free dining was out, and I had begged her for years to use my services. She called at like 9 o'clock at night. I was putting the kids into bed, and I took all of her information down. The next day, I get the kids up, I get them ready, I get them to school, I go to the office. I forget to make her deposit. So about 2 weeks before it's time for them to go, she's like, hey, you never called me for my final payment. And so I go back and I look, and I was like, oh my gosh. Well, she already knew what had happened, and she was just kind of seeing what I would say. And I was like, oh my lands, like I messed up. And she's like, oh, I know you messed up. She's like, because I called Disney and they told me, you know, you messed up. And she's like, but luckily Disney fixed it for me, and Disney honored what you didn't do. And I was like, and that's great. But I was willing to pay for the free dining. Like they wasn't going to get free dining, but I was going to pay that $1,100.
So you were owning.
Oh, I was owning it. I didn't tell her that because she was like meleeing into me, and I just let her because she had every right to be upset with me. I mean, I potentially screwed up. And then I was like, and then if the resort she didn't want, I could only go up. I couldn't take her down in category. So I was willing to take, you know, a potential, because they had 2 rooms. I was potentially going to owe $3,500, $4,000. But I tell you what, it hurts when you know you mess up and you don't get that opportunity to fix it. I would say that in the 16 years we've been in business, that is the only time I've not been able to fix something that I messed up. But the other ones I've been able, you know, like there was one really big mess up, and it was like all the way down to like really close to the travel, and it was the biggest booking I had, and I had accidentally CC'd the whole family in on what was supposed to be a private email to one person.
It's back there when you can put a group under a name.
Yeah, and I had it in my email as his name, and I did that, but I didn't see that it said family, and so I sent this that was direct for just him, and he and I had went back and forth, and there was I hadn't really said anything really. He had said there were just things in there that was not intended for the family, and I immediately gasped. I think like I may have hyperventilated once I realized what had happened, and I yelled into Michelle's office and I said, can you retract the email? And so she went back and she was able to retract all but 3. And by that time they had started forwarding them to everybody. So I was like, so I called the client, and I actually got his assistant, and I profusely apologized, and I said, if you guys want to, like, I don't and I never have turned over a booking to the vendor and or another agency. This was the one time, and I said, if you want me to turn this back over to it was Holland America Cruise Line, I said, I will be happy, and you can deal directly with them, or if you have a travel agent that is more capable of handling your vacation than I am, because I'm obviously not capable of doing a good job. And she laughed, the assistant laughed, and she said, you know what? She said, as soon as I saw this, she said, I was wondering what you was going to do. And she said, you did exactly what I was hoping you would do. And she said, you owned it. And she said, you know, like, there's not too many people that would call and say, hey, I messed up. And she said, and that's why we love you. And she said, and we wouldn't book with anybody else but you, because people always want to blame somebody. They want to blame the email server. They want to blame their assistant. They want to blame somebody when in fact the buck stopped with me. It was I did it. Like there was no, like I could have blamed Michelle and been like, oh, you know, Michelle, you know, but I'm like, why? Like, would I want somebody to throw me under the bus? Like, especially if I didn't do anything, you know, absolutely not. So I think in business, I think if I gave advice to anybody, it would be own it. So you know, own your mistakes.
So I think that when I asked about, you know, challenges or surprises,
yeah,
I think the biggest surprise was how much incremental business came out of you owning that.
Wow. I think we attributed multiple millions of dollars in sales from that, because then they told their friends, which told their friends, which told their friends. And yeah, when you mess up, because that's one thing that I can guarantee, we will mess up as an entrepreneur. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, if if you have a child that's playing a sport, if you have a kid in college, if you are taking a job and you have a job somewhere, you will mess up. But what's your first go-to? Is it to blame your boss for not training you well? Is it, blaming a coworker? Is it blaming a customer? Is it blaming your high school college or your high school college recruiter for telling you wasn't smart enough to get in that college, or do you just say, you know what? I'm better than that and I messed up. I messed up.
And I can change the outcome.
and I can fix this. If you allow me to fix this, I will do everything in my power moving forward. I will put things in place so I don't mess up again, because I think customer service is all we, in this line, in travel, I mean, that's what we are. We are customer service. And
what would you say? That's good. What would you say to an advisor or listener that's out there that has had trouble or difficulties with a client that has been like irate, or they're not treating them very nicely?
You just made me think about memory. I have fired 3 clients, and I don't fire and when I say fire, I broke up with them. I ended the relationship, and I remember one of them. He was so mean. Like, it didn't matter. Like, if I did everything in my power. I got everything that he wanted, but every time I talked to him, he was so mean and so rude. Like, and every time I got off the phone with him, I mean, I would lose like an hour or two just dwelling on, what did I do wrong? How could I have done it better? Like, he just sucked every drop of positive energy out of me. And I'm like, so I finally called him. It was like, we were already in, once again, when in the travel industry, the hardest part, getting the booking, getting the deposit, helping with the dining, helping with all the reservations, helping. So once you get about a month before a vacation, all the hard work has been done. Like, everything's been done, all the hard work that, it's like all the heavy lifting has been done. And I remember I called this guy a couple, we had talked to him, or I had talked to him, and he meleeed into me again. And I said, I've been thinking about this a lot. And I said, I'm gonna turn your booking. It was a Disney vacation. I said, I'm gonna turn your booking over to Disney, and you can just deal with them directly. I just, I feel like I am messing up your vacation at every turn. I feel like you need to just not, like, I don't want to ruin your vacation. This was more about me than it was about him. Like, I pitched it as, hey, I want you to have a nice vacation. I just never wanted to have to talk to him again. Like, he was making me feel uncomfortable. He made me feel very uncomfortable. And, and it's like, do you set those boundaries, and do you allow people to talk to you like that? Do you allow that? Or do you, some people it wouldn't bother. It bothered me. This man was just flat out mean. And so when I said this, he was taken aback, and he goes, why would I want Disney to handle my vacation? And he said, because he said, why would I want Disney to handle my vacation? And I said, because everything I do is wrong. I said, you get mad, you raise your voice, you sometimes yell at me. And I said, I don't want this to be a bad experience for you. This is a Disney vacation.
I remember what he said.
This is supposed to be a good, magical experience. And he goes, oh my God. He said, no. He said, you're the best travel agent we've ever had. And I go, well, why do you yell at me? He said, that's just how I talk to people. And I said, dude, like, you make me want to cry. And he's like, I do? And I'm like, yes. I said, you make me sad. I said, when I get off the phone with you, I'm sad. And he's like, why? I said, because you yell at me.
So there's what I remember.
I mean, it was where he lived, and it was kind of the brush.
Yes, and here's what I remember about that.
And he goes, please never leave me.
Yeah, you said you had fired, or broke up with 3.
Yeah.
But actually, I remember he stayed around for a while. He became a really good
And he
client.
sent all of his, and I said, he sent all of his mean friends. And I said, so I was like, look, I know how you guys talk to people. If you want me to book your vacation, okay, I need you to be nice to me. And I need you to not, like, if I do something wrong, yes, you can bring it to my attention, but you cannot yell at me. So I set a boundary.
Yes. So very important what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is part of where advisors can become better, or do things better, is by setting the groundwork up front, setting the right expectations. This is what I'm going to do for you. This is how I'm going to respond to these things. And I think a lot of advisors, they don't do the work up front, and ask all the right open-ended
qualifying questions.
Yes. So
I remember I was in the travel industry for probably 6 years, and all the classes I kept going to, it's like, it kept talking about asking the right questions, the qualifying questions. And, I was one of those, like, I didn't want people to think I was stupid. So I never asked what are qualifying questions. I don't know why I was afraid to dig. But once I finally dig, I was like, And I think it was Tommy that finally at one point explained what a qualifying question was. And I was like, like I kind of do that, but I could get better at it. And so I think that, we go in wanting to be the best and we want to think that we know everything. But, we've talked about this, and whether it was basketball, whether it's real estate, whether it's parenting, whether it's being a child, being like a son, a daughter, a brother, a sister, a neighbor, I think we always want to do better. We want to be better, but we're always learning. What are we going to tolerate? What are we not going to tolerate? We're going to, because like with that client, I had to finally say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with the way you're treating me. Mm. And if he said, okay, well, this is the way I'm going to treat you, then I'm going to be like, okay, my hands are done. Like I'm not wishing you, I want you to have a good vacation, but it's not going to be with me. Like it's not, you're not going to drag me through the mud because this is how you talk to people, And I think that when I was starting, it was like, I needed every sale because I knew where I was wanting to go. But then I realized my mental health, my well-being was just important, because then I couldn't take care of that next client that called. So if I was wasting 2 hours on this conversation that I just had with this client that was being mean to me or telling me how terrible I was or this and that, I was jeopardizing everybody else that was thankful for me. And that's life. That's not just in business, that's in life.
Again, you just said that something, well-being. Mm-hmm. Your well-being. If you're not well, and most advisors will tell you they love being in the tribal industry, mm-hmm. so that they can share their experiences and memories and things that they've had.
Yeah.
And they find it very pleasant to be able to help people book their, vacations, that mm-hmm. they've been planning for years.
Right.
But if you're not well yourself, if your well-being is on rocks or whatever, and it's not as good as it could be, then how could you take care of a client?
Right. And that ties into life. If you have a job that you don't like and you resent it and then you go home, it carries over into the way you treat your kids, the way you treat your spouse, the way you treat your neighbors, the way you treat everybody. And that's the one thing I love about this journey of Magical Vacation Planner. A lot of us in the beginning, we did it for fun. It was a hobby. It was therapy. I always joke, like, it was therapy for us because we could escape from our crazy personal lives and plan vacations. And so we're living in this fantasy land of planning vacations. Like, there was nothing. We wasn't curing cancer. We wasn't doing brain surgery. Like, we weren't doing anything other than just talking to people about happy places, cruise, Disney. We were taking them to these great places. And so it goes back to, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I always say, like, sometimes what we do feels like a job, and I'm like, we need to pivot, like, because it shouldn't be complicated. Like, and I don't want it to be complicated. Now, there's hard things that we have to do, but when it seems like a job, that's when I'm like, okay, why does it seem like a job? How is it going to affect our agents? Is this about me? Is it about someone else? Or is it about the bigger picture? Because, like, to me, if what we're doing here at Magical Vacation is, in fact, supporting our agents, how will it affect them? And I think as a parent, that's what you have to think. What are my actions? How is my actions going to affect my kids? If you're a leader, how are my actions going to affect my team? And, I think if you don't love what you do, it doesn't take long to figure out that you don't love what you do. You can't fake that.
Exactly. And that's love what you do.
And you'll never work a day in your life.